Okay, so part 2 to this Kifaru Woobie review. In part 1, I just talked about the reason I bought it, the details about it, and I unpacked from the stuff sack. I did all that in 15 minutes, so if you're lucky enough just to catch this video, you can avoid all that jumbo. So yeah, we can get down into the meat and potatoes of this. First of all, it comes with a built-in stuff sack made out of the same material, some still nylon product. It packs it kind of loose though, and sometimes that can be good, whatnot. Pretty good drawstring. It uses a Nexus toggle type thing. There's a tag on here. It says Made in USA with American flag, which is a good thing. Underneath it says Sewn in Pride in the USA by Hong, H-O-N-G. So that person is the person that sewed this whole thing and built it. It has paracord loops. So let's see, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'll just count them all. So it has 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 14 or 15 places to, in tarps you call them tie-out points, but in this you probably wouldn't use it as tarp, but you could. But I've used those before. You can drape it over, fold it in half, and just use a S-beaner or a little chunk of 550 cord, just tie it together, and it's kind of like a makeshift rectangular sleeping bag. It's not totally sealed, so I mean it won't hold heat in as good. But the other thing you can do is tie it together, but then have that seam underneath you, so it's like an underquilt, but during the night it won't slide off you and everything. That's well, I'll get to that later. So it has that 2 ounces per square yard of Climashield. Climashield and Primaloft are close enough to be the same. I know there's some differences, but if you have something that's made out of Primaloft, it's probably a lot. It's probably, you could reasonably compare it to this Climashield. Oh, I told you the weight, 1 pound 4 ounces. It even feels lighter. It feels like you're just packing up a bag of air when you pack this up. I mean, just scrunching it up. This right now packs down smaller than a lot of even the down sleeping bags that I own. Not only is it lighter, but it packs down more compact. In the first video, I said, I've owned a whole lot of sleeping bags. The difference with this product is I use this about every single day. It's on my bed pretty much every single night. When I go out camping, throw it in a stuff sack, put it at the bottom of my pack. Even if I'm carrying another sleeping bag with it, this is always with me. Few reasons. Number one, most of the time I'll just use a lighter sleeping bag and drape this over. I like that system. Don't ask me why, but I do. So if I do start overheating for some reason, I just kind of can slide this off in the middle of the night, instead of unzipping the bag, letting all the heat out, and then zipping it up, unzipping it, zipping it. Another use for it is a concealment garment. So for hunters or you tactical folk, I mean, if I was outside in the woods, I mean, you could almost hunt out of this. And what I mean by that is, instead of having a blind, I mean, yeah, you'd be sitting on the ground, But you could sit up against a tree or a rock, have a baseball hat on so this doesn't fall in front of your face. Preferably a camo one. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, you're pretty concealed. Even right now though, I'm already like starting to heat up. So if it was a warm weather hunt, it'd probably be a little bit too much. But concealment garment has a tie out point, so you could do kind of a stealth poncho hooch type thing. The other thing is like you can have this like yellow or red, whatever, ultralight sleeping bag, but if you want to be more like tactical or subdued, you could still use that one and then just put this on top so it camouflages it, instead of like paying for like a high-tech camo multicam sleeping bag, a good one. And then another thing is like if you're around a fire or if you're like kind of in a tree stand, it's easier just to use it like a blanket than it is to use a sleeping bag as a blanket. You can sit like this Indian style on the ground. If you're on the ground, your butt and your legs might get a little cold, but whatever. But I mean, even like this. The other thing, like I said, is just as a comforter. Probably more like if you're single. If you have a girlfriend or you're married, they will probably steal this. So what I would recommend is getting a padlock or a cable lock and using one of those loops and padlocking it to your side of the bed. Just based on previous encounters. I'll leave it at that. But yeah, no, seriously, I'm not kidding about that. They will steal it. So, I mean, we talked about the uses. So many advantages over this. Another thing is for you hammock campers that use hammocks, this is an excellent underquilt. Okay, so if you're kind of an extreme hammocker, you've looked at underquilts and like down ones or whatever, they can be $250, like $200 plus, $250, $300, and the only thing you can really use it for is as an underquilt. With this, you can use it as an underquilt, but you can use it for, it's not really designed for that, but it works perfect. What I do is I hang each corner. I hang this corner, and I use a little, I don't have one around, but a little bungee cord and hook it to the end of my hammock and vice versa. The two ends, I have a third bungee cord, so after I'm in, I grab the two ends, bring them around, and hook it. So it cocoons. The other thing, as opposed to most underquilts, is it literally insulates the whole bottom of your hammock. And it makes for a rather comfortable night in a hammock. Rather cold, and in rather cold conditions. So again, your everyday comforter on your bed, a sleeping bag, a concealment article, a kind of a poncho hooch or some type of shelter, like a tree stand. If you're in the tree stand late season, you start getting cold, just put this on instead of all your other stuff if you're like in a stand or whatever. Warm weather, or not warm weather, but if you're like turkey hunting or something, instead of a blind, you could just wrap up in this and you're pretty concealed. Concealment article to conceal sleeping bags, as a hammock, underquilt, as a campfire blanket. And I shouldn't say that's about it, because that's a lot of uses for one piece of gear, especially one that weighs in the ballpark of 1 pound. It took me about 2 hands to count all the different things, and there's more for sure. But for one piece that weighs 1 pound and only costs 150 bucks. Sure, that's kind of a lot, but if it can do 8 different things for 150, if you do the math, that's like 20 bucks for each thing it can do. I mean, figure out your method of justifying the cost of this, but once you buy it, you'll forget how much it cost. It wasn't like 1 week after buying this, I was like, God, that was a waste of money. Within 2 weeks, just like with any good product, within 2 weeks, I kind of forgot what it cost because I used it so much and it was so useful. I'm like, I don't care if it costs 50 bucks or 500 bucks, you know. But it's kind of that initial, it has to be priced in a certain ballpark initially, so a lot of people will buy it. So, list all the not all the advantages, all the things it can be used for. Few of the drawbacks. Number one is the fabric they use means it's very slippery. So if you're using it in the middle of the night, it might slide out to one side or the other. If you're using that sleeping bag, what I would recommend is either using that integrated stuff sack and making a foot box, or extending it over your feet a little bit, folding it over, and then kind of like folding in and kind of tucking it in like that, so it's not, none of the blanket's really underneath you, but it's kind of on each side of you, if that makes sense. That can kind of mitigate the problem. Other drawback, besides that, not really. Now, in a previous video, which I might post at the same time, I was using this in conjunction with another product down to, it was 32 degrees. Okay, I've used this by itself down to 32 degrees, and again, I'm kind of a warm sleeper, but I was using a proper sleeping pad, a proper ground cloth. At a shelter, I was protected from the wind, etc., etc. But 1 pound 4 ounces, 150 bucks, and it is good down, let's say for most people, down to 40 degrees. Okay, now the thing is, probably 90% of people, they only camp down to 40 degrees. There's not many people that like camp down into like the sub-freezing. I mean, there's some people that do winter camping, but depending on where you live, you might not get that cold, or you have no ambition to go out when it's that cold. So that's, I mean, this would be perfect for many people, because most of what they do is from late spring through summer to early fall, which is the temperature rating in which this would be perfect for. Again, 1 pound 4 ounces, packs down super small. I mean, when I compress it a little bit, it packs down to the size of an Nalgene. Nalgene is 1 liter, right? So 1 liter pack space, 1 pound 4 ounces of weight. It's a win in my book. And right now I only own one. Eventually I might own a second, maybe a third. And pretty much every primary bag, whether it's a woods bag, a get home bag, bug out bag, whatever, my main bag always has this in it. It's that good. Now, again, in my book, total win. Talked about the disadvantages. That's the only one I've came up with. Second one, which isn't really a disadvantage, but the lack of zippers means it's harder to cocoon that heat around you, because it's not the bag that creates heat. It's your body that's creating the heat, and the bag or the blanket that's holding the heat in around you. That's what's keeping you warm. So in really, really cold weather, because you can't zip this up and cocoon that heat around you, that's sort of a disadvantage of this, the lack of zippers. But the advantage, though, is that's where you're getting all your weight savings, because zippers are quite heavy. So it's pros and cons. But another pro is zippers can fail, especially in cold weather. If they get really cold, they can freeze up, they can fail, they can snag. I can't tell you how many times on a sleeping bag I've gone up and it snagged. A few times it's tore the nylon, the filling starts coming out, and it's a bad day. This, you're totally removing that zipper. You do have the option of closing it up, but again, in my book, the lack of zippers isn't really a downside, because there's no way they could add zippers to it that you could use optionally while keeping the compressibility and the weight of this the same. So I mean, I understand the lack of zippers and everything, and I mean the original poncho liner didn't have whatever. So one last thing before we wrap this up is I have about 8 ounces of water. I have a bowl. So what I'm going to do, this is like a bonus for if you sat through this whole thing, is I'm just going to take part of this, rubber band around like that, make a little bowl, right? I don't know if you can see that or not. Okay. They said this is water resistant, so let's just check this out, okay? Little bowl. I don't know if you can see that, but right now it's holding water. Okay, let's fill it up some more. Okay, I don't know if you can see that on camera, but I just dumped about 12 ounces of water, and I can even start my timer. I might roll in some pictures of this. Again, I've never done this test. This was just for fun. And I'll roll in pictures. I know on camera it'll be hard to see, but it's holding water. So far it's been holding water for about 30 seconds. And I poured about 12 ounces. There's about 12 ounces. There's a little bit more if you can see. Ooh, I'll just pour that onto there. Now, if this was a down bag, I wouldn't dare do this test. That's all I'll say. I'm not hurting this bag in any way. Because, you know, take it for what it is. They don't recommend you doing this, but let's see if you can. Let's see if you can pick that up anymore. There's water sitting in there. You know. Oh. I mean, there's water sitting in there, okay? So, what does that say about the product? Well, it's rated only to be water resistant. But right now it's holding water. If I wanted to, I could drink out of this. Okay? I mean, take it for what it is, but I've gotten so many just normal sleeping bags soaked and wet that are claimed to be water resistant. But I don't have a good okay, because for some of you might not think there's water in here, but this is just an old coffee cup. Okay, I'm ladling it up. Okay, So, how should we proceed? Well, let's see if we can do this. Okay. So I dumped it into another bowl. So you can't really even tell where it's wet, and the bowl is empty. The bowl is, no water came through. The insulation soaks some up to the touch. Yeah, it's damp, it's whatever, but you can shake this out. Well, I mean, yeah, I can still see where it's wet, but that was holding water. That wasn't getting rained on and the water pooling off. That was holding water for a good 3 minutes, and there's no water in this bowl. I mean, take it for what it is. I think that's pretty cool. But yeah, again, this was my review on the Kifaru Woobie. Do I recommend it? Yeah. That's all I got to say about that.